want to go over the Missy Bevers case. She's the woman that was murdered inside the Midlothian, Texas church back in 2016. And there's video of the person that murdered her. I'm going to show you that and talk about it next. Missy Bevers is 45 years old. She's from Red Oak, Texas, and she was a fitness instructor. And she would go over to the Creekside Church of Christ in Midlothian, Texas, and she would teach a fitness class. Now, she was over there around 5 a.m. in the morning to set everything up for the class that she was going to be giving that day, when somebody stalked her, crept up on her, surprised her, and murdered her inside this church. As I mentioned before, what is unusual about this case is there is video, a lot of video of the person that was inside the church that the police believe are responsible for Missy's murder. And also what's interesting is this person has a specific gait when they're walking. And you would think that the way they walk and their build, that the police would be able to, or somebody who's familiar with this person would be able to say, yes, we know who this person is. But this happened back in 2016, and the case is still unsolved.
To dress up and overcome being on video, those kinds of things, that tells me that there's a little aspect of vindictiveness in that.
So I wanted to show you some video. The first video I'm going to show you is of the person inside the church walking around. And as you can see, they're strolling around, they're taking their time, they don't seem to be in much of a hurry. You'll see them like they're looking for something in particular, or maybe just being nosy. You see him open a door, and I'll just say him, but we don't know for sure. It could also be a female opening a door and then closing, or not even closing the door, leaving it wide open. And I kind of wonder if it may be a male, because I think a female would probably have closed that. It's just kind of like our instincts to kind of like come behind people and pick things up. It's just something we end up doing most of our life when we have children. We go behind them and we pick things up. So I think if the door would have been closed if it'd been a female. So it's not much to go on, but this is what's making me feel like this is likely a man and not a female. You'll also notice that they have this full gear on. Now there's a helmet, there's a vest, and there's all the black, the pants. Likely they probably have the boots too, although I haven't heard anybody say anything about what type of boots they are. Usually when they're doing riot gear, or police will wear a particular brand, and no one's come right out and said what that brand is. Now, as you see on some of these maneuvers that he's doing, he tends to use the right foot and kind of swing it a little bit and slam it down. Now, people are saying they think that he's limping and that he has a problem with his leg. And I was watching this and it reminded me of somebody I knew, and the problem that they were having is actually a degenerative disc disease. And what happens as they're walking, they start to get tired and not even really conscious of what they're doing, but because of the pressure on the spine and the sciatic nerve, the leg becomes tired and it's not quite as strong as the other leg. They're usually one side or the other. And so they will kind of maneuver, when they're taking a step, they'll maneuver and swing that leg, in this case, the right leg, around to the front and almost stomp the foot down a little bit. And you'll see that both feet kind of go out duck-like, but because of that maneuvering, when the foot comes down, it's really over to the right dramatically. So I am personally thinking that maybe this person has a problem with their back and it has nothing to do with their leg. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, for two reasons. One, they wouldn't always have that funny little gait. It seems to come on and become more and more apparent the more walking they do. So if they're just walking back and forth from the car, you may not notice it. But if they're walking for a period of time, like at the shopping mall, the grocery store, they would, this gait, their back would start swelling up and this gait would start to come into effect and you would notice it at that point. So I don't think that this person has this all the time. I think it only comes out when they're doing a lot of walking. Now, there was 3 search warrants released just days before the murder. And they found out that Missy had received a message through LinkedIn that she shared with her girlfriend, and they both acknowledged that it was a creepy, strange message. Now, no one's come forward to say if there's any connection. The authorities haven't said if there's any connection between that message and Missy's murder, but seems awful coincidental. But that would also mean that somebody was stalking her if we find out later that it was connected. I also want to show you this other video that shows a car that was seen in the parking lot. Now, the guy that owns the gun shop in that same parking lot gave this surveillance video to the police. And you can see a car driving around several times around this parking lot and then parking for a little while. Now, the police aren't quite sure which car it is. They're going from a 2010 to 2012 Nissan Altima, or maybe in a 2010, 2012 Infiniti G37. So I thought, well, that's kind of strange. You think they'd be able to narrow it down, get real close to it. I attempted to do that with just like computer. And what I found is when I compared it, and you can go over to Missing Persons of America's website and you can look at the pictures more clearly. But when I compared the actual vehicle that drove in there to the Nissan and the Infiniti, I could see they're very, very much alike, all the way down to the hubcaps. Lots of times you can tell the difference between the car because of the hubcap. You just zero in on that and you can see the difference between the two. But it seems almost like they both have identical hubcaps. And also, as far as the plate, I tried to zero in on the plate several times, and heaven knows, I know the cops have probably already did this, but I myself wanted to give it a try, and I tried over and over again to try to get the plate, and the lights are in such a way that it's blurring it out and making it all white. You can't even see anything. You can't see a number. You can't see a sticker. You can't see anything. I'm betting, though, that the police have much better sophisticated equipment than I do. And maybe they've been able to get a state or a number or two, but I wasn't able to get anything at all. Now, there's messages recovered on the phone, on Missy's phone and her husband's phone, and all they could really find out with that is that there seemed to be trouble with finances, and they were having marital struggles, and evidently there was another intimate personal relationship that one of them was having, but they did not specifically say if it was Missy or her husband, Brandon, that was having that relationship. I don't think they probably knew how much it was. I don't know, or even if they did, they're not letting that out. And I can agree with that. It's personal information. Really doesn't need to be out there. And they also found let me read this to you. During the investigation, authorities identified 9 people linked to 11 phone numbers from Texas, deleted messages, etc. on the phone. Now, none of those people turned out to be suspects in the case. So they did that, and they kind of ended up in a dead end.
I've flip-flopped on this over the years, but I can only offer an opinion based on insight, and I kind of feel she was targeted.
Now, they were also zeroing in on the height of this person. First, they started thinking he was around 6 foot tall, she 6 foot tall. Then they went down to, 5'5" to 5'8", and then the last thing that came out from the Dallas News is that the person was between 5'2" and 5'7". So now, that's doom. That's quite a difference. And then, of course, they pointing out the distinct gait
Missy's no longer
and how the feet turned out from the body. They said they also went to specialists to see if they could figure out who would, what they could be
on video cameras inside the church. A suspect roaming around.
What could be the reason why they would be walking that way, and they never came out with anything definite. So, what I mentioned before earlier about the back problem. I don't know if they've even gone down that area to see if that's the case or not.
So that we could deal with it.
Now, the latest theory from the police are they think that she walked into a robbery. Now, they said that someone forced themselves into the church and then they cleaned up after they hurt Missy. And I don't know. I'm sure they must have information that makes them lean that way that they haven't told anybody else. It could be a robbery. It just seems awful strange to me that somebody would go in there and rob, and they're so cavalier and just strolling along in the building and, let me see. And you don't really see them take anything, right? You don't see them put anything in their pocket. They just seems to be strolling around. But it's a robbery. Maybe something is missing. I don't know, and it hasn't come out in the media. But that person seems pretty casual walking around, and it's to me a big leap to go from walking around inside a building, maybe picking up things here and there, to murdering somebody. I mean, why can't you just run away? You're completely disguised. Your face is disguised. Your hair coloring is disguised. Your skin's disguised. Everything's disguised except for your gait. And that doesn't seem to help any at all anyway. So why kill somebody? Why? You're disguised. That's one of the reasons you're wearing all this stuff, so nobody can identify who you are. So why wouldn't you not just turn around and leave? And then I'm assuming the person's car was not out there when they did this. I'm sure they must have parked way off down the street, so they could have ran out the door and she wouldn't have done anything. Now, one retired police chief said, well, maybe they were wearing this outfit to throw her off. So when they walked up to her, she would not be nervous and she would go, oh, there's just police coming to ask me a question, and would not run away. That would give her them a chance to get close to her and then kill her. I don't know. What are they doing before that? You would think that they would be pacing up and down thinking about what they're just about ready to do. Not walking around casually. It's a bizarre case. I'm sure you'll agree with me. You can go back and forth on this a lot of times and thinking this and that and this, and nothing concrete really comes from it. It's just theories over and over again. Now, at one point, Missy's father-in-law, she was drawn into this. His name was Randy Bevers, and they thought maybe he had something to do with it because he had a t-shirt that he took to the dry cleaners and had blood all over it. Well, it turned out that he said that his chihuahua had gotten into a fight and the blood was from his chihuahua. Now, you think, well, why don't you just throw the shirt away? Why would you go get it dry cleaned? I don't know. But he did, and the police did get that shirt and they did do the testing, and it was all dog on there. There was no human blood on there whatsoever. So he was cleared. And there's another man, Bobby Wayne Henry. Now, they were really onto him, and they thought for sure that he had something to do with it, I'm assuming. And he told the police that he was very verbal. He told the police he owned the riot gear like the person had in the video. And he said he had a chest protector that no longer fit him. And that usually happens when you gain weight, then you can't get them on anymore. They only go so far. And that he worked as a security guard and he walked with a limp. Now you'll see in the video, you'll see Henry walking, and this was during the funeral for Missy, and he's outside providing security, and you see him walking, and you can see the person with the camera zeroing down on his feet and the way he walks. And you see all these coincidences and all these things that fall together, and you go, well, gosh, it's got to be him. Well, the police said that Bobby was 6'1" and he was too tall for the person that was in that video. And they researched his alibi for where he was that night, and he was clear. He actually was where they said he was. So he was let go, released from jail, and he's no longer a suspect. Also in this video that I'm going to show you now, a part of that video, you'll see this reporter stating that Henry passed a polygraph test. And here, we'll listen to it right now.
I told him from the get-go I didn't know this woman. Never heard the name Missy Bevers before I heard it on the news.
He passed the polygraph, his alibi checked out, and months after sitting in jail and just days after our September interview, police cleared Henry's name and released him from jail.
So I also looked up to see if there's any other cases where anybody attacked anybody wearing riot gear. I thought, well, let's see if this ever happened anyplace else. Now, I actually ran across a case of Elizabeth Barraza. She was 29 and she had a garage sale. And she was over at Cedar Walk Drive in Tomball, Texas. And she walked out. She was putting things together for a garage sale. And this person walked up to her, and they're not sure it's a male or female, and shot her, and subsequently she died from that shooting. They still haven't found out who that is, but that person was wearing riot gear also. Is there connection? I don't know. These two destinations, these two places, Cedar Walk Drive and Midlothian, Texas, are about 3.5 hours away from each other, and you can see the map there. Is this the same person? I don't know. No one's came forward and said there's any connection in any way to these two cases, but they both seem just as random. So that's about this on this case. If you have any information, please call the police. They're at 972-775-7634 and let them know what you know, and maybe it might lead to something. All right, and that's it. Thanks all for listening. Bye-bye.